I will begin round two. General Dice, I want to ask two more big picture questions and would appreciate the answer in the simplest, most layman's terms. What is the Army's modernization strategy and who is responsible for that strategy?
Well, the Secretary and the Chief are going to approve the strategy, and they're going to submit that strategy in accordance with the NDAA by the 30th of April of this year. The strategy essentially lines up the modernization priorities that have already been, as you've talked about, Senator King and my colleagues here at the table, essentially tells you how we intend to get after those modernization priorities. There's an upfront piece that establishes the current state that we find ourselves in on modernization, but I would say the majority of the document are in annexes that describes the 6 modernization priorities as laid out by the Secretary and the Chief in some detail.
If I recall Army leadership principles, the Secretary and the Chief are responsible for everything the Army does and fails to do.
Well, Title 10, Man, Train, Equip, Assess, Station is...
Who beneath the Secretary and the Chief is personally responsible for the Army modernization strategy?
Well, there's lots of people helping them, Senator, but I think I'm helping writing that down at Army Capabilities Integration Center with the help of my colleagues here at the table.
Thank you. And building on that, what are the key objectives of our modernization strategy in the near term, say defined as the next 2 years?
I think in the next 2 years, and you'll see this, I think, when the PB19 comes over, is a thorough review of our science and technology dollars that are aligned to the modernization priorities. A lot of those modernization priorities, unless we do off-the-shelf of existing equipment that's out there, are going to deliver in the at least 21, 22, and beyond timeframe. So if you ask the question, what's happening in the next 2 years, it will be a realignment of some of those dollars, which you'll be able to see on the 12th. And then essentially the experimentation and demonstration of capabilities that those cross-functional teams will be doing. And then in the early to mid-20s, the delivery of capability.
Thank you. General Ostrowski, sticking with the big picture, the Army Future Combat System was, let's just say, less than a tremendous success. General Milley acknowledged this at recent remarks to the Association of the U.S. Army, but he also stressed that we do need to have a significant leap ahead in the technology that we're fielding, 10x, in fact, he said, and pointed out some examples from the 1980s how we succeeded in that effort with systems like the Abrams, the Bradley, Patriot, the Apache, the Black Hawk. How do we model on that success from the 1980s and avoid the failures of the future combat system?
Mr. Chairman, the key is to do the experimental and the prototyping up front and early with soldiers. General Murray mentioned this earlier. If we're going to fail, we need to fail early. So early prototyping is absolutely essential in getting after this piece. The problem that we've had in the past has been we've been too, I would say, hurried to rush into a program of record. And once we did, with technology that was never even ready for the technology readiness reduction phase of the program. So we have to spend more time understanding the technology first, writing the requirement to do so, and then once we understand the state-of-the-art of technology, ensure that we prototype that and we fly before we buy before entering into a major effort.
I would just add, Mr. Chairman, we also have to be comfortable with the 80% solution as the initial development. And I go back to the M1 tank, which you mentioned was originally fielded with a 105 millimeter cannon. We knew we needed 120 millimeter. The technology wasn't there, so we fielded it with a 105 with the space to upgrade it to a 120 as we went along. So that type of 80% is good enough, perfect is the enemy are good enough, and then get on with it and improve it over time.
Thank you. I want to turn to more specific programmatic questions from the big picture questions I have explored, but first I'll turn to Senator King for his second round of questioning.
General Ostrowski, I have some questions about the industrial